Hi, my name is Darren, and today I'm going to be talking about the Oxygen Page Builder. We all know by now that Oxygen has a reputation for building fast websites. So what I'm going to show you today is how to make fast websites faster with the Oxygen Page Builder. And the way we're going to be doing that is there's three essential plugins that I use on every single site that I build with Oxygen. Hydrogen Pack, Oxy Ninja, and Swiss Knife. Hydrogen Pack and Swiss Knife add functionality to the editor of Oxygen, which helps speed up your workflow. Oxy Ninja is a set of utility classes pre-installed onto your website so that you can get started building with CSS classes right off the bat. Then after that, I'm going to show you a way of setting up your H tags, your paragraph tags, and your padding to be responsive with just adding one setting to each one of these elements from the very beginning, and you will have a responsive website right off the bat. You never have to go in there to each individual breakpoint and set different sizes for those elements. Okay, ready? Let's just jump right into it. So the first thing I want to do is take you on a tour of what the Oxygen work environment looks like out of the box. So what we're going to do is get into here. So this is just a clean install of WordPress on my local server. And we're going to go into the Oxygen editor and we'll take a look around. So the first thing that you're going to notice is that the contrast of the elements in the editor are kind of low. And it makes it a little bit difficult to recognize things. So you'll see right off the bat here. See how this is kind of a light gray? The blue buttons get a little lost in there, looking at the structure panel. So the second thing I want you to notice is that there are no key commands in Oxygen. So if you want to add an element, you need to come over here, click Add, click on the section, and then if you want to add a div into that section, you got to keep coming back over here to the left, moving your mouse around, adding a heading, and then let's say we want to add a button, okay? And then the next thing I want you to notice is over here on the right, there are no real visual indicators of what these sections are. So let's open this section up here and then open up these different elements that we have in here. So, you know, the section, the div, the heading, the button, they all look exactly the same. Okay, so that just makes identifying some things, just makes identifying things a little bit more tricky. There's no visual indicators there for quick identification what all of these things are. Another thing to notice is that, if you wanted to rename these sections, and you should, as your sites get bigger, you get more elements in there, you're going to want to name them, especially if you're going to be handing this off to another developer or to your client who's going to be going in there and doing the editing. You're going to want to name these things. So right now, to name this, there's about 5 steps you got to take. So first thing is you got to hover over this, click on this pencil, get rename, and then you see how you get the cursor blinking in there. So now you got to triple click on this to highlight the whole thing, and then rename it to whatever it is you want to name it. So let's just call it main div and then enter. Okay, and then the last thing I want to point out before we get out of here is your breakpoints. They're hidden here in a drop-down menu. So you got to click on it and then select your breakpoint, go there, make your edits, come back and move around. So they're hidden there. Okay. All right. So next step is let's go in and activate some of these plugins and see how it's going to improve your workflow. So let's go back over here to the front end and let's go over to the dashboard, plugins. Excuse me. And the first plugin that I'm going to activate is Hydrogen Pack. So right off the bat, you see everything is set up. You can go through here and check them out and activate or deactivate the elements that you want. And I pretty much leave everything as it is, or just a few things that I do. One thing I want you to notice up here is where it says Oxygen's global colors have changed. Please click here to regenerate the CSS cache. Now that's something that in Oxygen, as you're working, as you're adding classes, making changes, everyone's, from time to time, you're going to have to regenerate that CSS. And to do that, if you are in your editor, you would need to leave the editor, go to the dashboard, go to Oxygen settings, find the CSS, click regenerate cache, wait for it to regenerate, and then go back to your work environment to continue working. So it takes time. What Hydrogen Pack offers, and I enable this, is called Auto Regenerate CSS Cache on Save. So now when you're in the editor, every time you hit save, that's going to be happening in the back end. You no longer have to leave your editor to regenerate the cache. Okay, so moving on down here, you get right click all of these elements. So now if you're in the editor and you right click, or if you're on if you're using a laptop and you're just using your trackpad here, you do control click, and you get this little contextual menu that pops up, and you'll see all of these options there to duplicate, copy, paste, wrap in a div, things like that. Let's see, moving on down here to the clipboard, animate copied elements. So every time you copy an element, because Hydrogen Pack also gives you the ability to just do like Command C, copy an element, and then you can paste it somewhere else. You could even paste it into another work environment. What this does, and I kind of like this touch, it's a little touch, but I like it. Every time you hit Command C to copy an element, that's going to fade out and fade in and let you know. So it gives you a little visual indicator that it has been copied. Okay, so I like that little touch. So, and that's enabled by default. So just wanted to point that out. Now down here are the keyboard shortcuts that Hydrogen Pack adds to your work environment. Okay, so I just make a couple of changes here. So the rename element, it's as by default, it's the function F2 key. I don't like using function keys, so what I do is I just update this, and I highlight that field, and I do Shift N. So now my key command for renaming an element is going to be Shift N. Coming down, you can go through all of these to see for yourself what they all are, but I don't really change anything other than I add icon. So what I do is I come over here and I do Command I. So now I have a key command for adding icon elements, and that is it. I don't change anything else. This gives you element icons. So as I was pointing out before when we were in the editor, the lack of visual indicators of what each element is. So by default, this is selected. So this is going to drop icons into those elements now. So you'll get, and you'll see when we get back in there. All right, so that's done. So let's hit save on this. Next thing I want to do is go over to Swiss Knife, and everything is turned off by default. So you got to set this up from, as you like. So the first thing I do is I do the select theme. I go to the dark theme, and what that's going to do is that it's going to take that low contrast work environment, and it's going to just add some contrast to it. And you'll see once we get in there right away what I mean. Okay, next thing I do here is in the top bar. This is in the Oxygen editor, the top bar of the Oxygen editor. So I do debug, page lists, and Oxygen template lists. Now these two features right here, that's going to give me a shortcut from the Oxygen editor to another page or to another template editor. So I just click it, go right to it. I don't have to go to the dashboard. I don't have to go look for the page or look for the template. It takes me right to it. Saves a lot of time, cutting down steps. And the debug is what that does is just highlights all the elements in there. So if you're like on a smaller screen, like on a phone or something like that, you kind of get that side to side wobble. If you hit debug, it's going to outline every element on your page and div on your page, section on your page. So you can see what's breaking out of your viewport. Makes it real quick and easy to fix. Okay, don't do anything here. Structure icons we're taking care of with Hydrogen Pack, so I don't do that here. And what I do over here is I come to Oxygen template list, and that gives it to me in the admin bar, so when I'm in the dashboard. And then there's one more thing I do over here is expanded breakpoints, and that's it for here. So let's save these changes. Let's refresh this real quick, and now you see I have my templates in the admin bar right here. Okay, so let's go back to the page that we were working on before, and let's go to edit page, edit with Oxygen, and you're going to see right away the increased contrast. And to me, it just feels better, it looks better, I just like it a lot better. And there is an option, if you don't like the dark mode, you can go to light mode as well. So you can see right away how much darker this is, how these blue buttons pop now, and everything just jumps off the screen at you. Makes things much easier to identify. Let's go over here to the structure panel. Now we have key commands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Shift S. It's going to add a section, just like that. Inside my section, Shift D. Inside my div, I want to do a heading. I want to do text. I want to do a button. One key command. So for text is Shift T. For the button, Shift B. For the div, Shift D. Now I want to add the icon. And remember, I set up that key command for icons, which is Command I. Now I get an icon in there. All of that, just one button click and we're there. No more going over here, add, searching for an element, none of that. But look how nice this is now with this high contrast. Everything just pops right off the screen at you. Okay, so now the other thing to notice is over here on the right-hand side in the structure panel, if we expand these things, you see there's icons in here now. So for a section, you get this rectangle, horizontal rectangle. For the div, you get the square. For the heading, for the text, for the button, you get the link. For the icon, you get the little heart icon in there. So it's giving you these quickly identifiable visual cues of what it is you're working on in there. The other thing to take notice of is here's our debug. If I click on that, now you see everything, every element on this page is now outlined and highlighted. So now I can tell if something was going beyond the viewport, I would know exactly which element it is very quickly. All right, so let's turn that off. Now the other thing here, these are the pages and the templates in my drop down here. So I can just click on this, do view or edit, and go right to the editor. So from here, so you don't have to hit save now. You don't have to go back to the dashboard and look for your page or look for your template. It's all right there. Okay, so so there we are with that. So now you can see the difference in there. Okay, now what I want to show you next is setting up those clamp functions that I mentioned about setting a universal or a, what do you call it, a global setting for your H tags, for your paragraphs, and for your padding. So you set it in this one spot here, and then you have a responsive, those elements will be responsive throughout the entire site. No longer will you have to go through your different page breaks and set those up. So let me show you how to do that real quick. So let's get rid of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a heading. One, let's just do 3 for now. Let's do a text element. And so what I want to do first before we go in and set up the clamp is that I want to go to my style sheets. So these style sheets here were added by the Oxy Ninja plugin, which I'll talk about next. But what it does is the core sizing, it sets a default font size at 100% across the whole page, and across the whole site. Let me increase the contrast in this code editor too. Let's set it to Dracula. So if you go HTML font size 100%, what I need it to be is 62.5%. So 62.5%. So what that does now is it sets a base of 10 pixels for all of my fonts, for my body font across the whole site. So let's collapse that. And that's going to be important because with this next step with clamp, we're going to be creating maximum and minimum font sizes, and working with multiples of 10 is going to be a lot easier than working with multiples of 16. Okay, so what I want to do now is go back to settings, global settings, and we're going to do our headings first. So the first thing I want to do here now is go to this calculator. This is a clamp calculator. It's online. It's called websemantics.uk. And then, so you got this calculator right here. So what you're doing here is you have a range. So from biggest, maximum, to smallest here. And then this is the viewport. Now my viewport on this site is, let's go to settings, let's go to width and breakpoints, is 1120. So I need to change this, since we're doing multiples of 10. Yeah, so that's 1120. So 112 times 10, 1120. And then let's do 320 down here. We want this to be at rem, Safari fix, all of this stuff is good. We want clamp, okay? And now I want to set my maximum and minimum size for my H1 tag. So in this case, I want it to be 48, so 4.8. Minimum, I want it to be, let's just say 40. Okay, so just put a 4 in there. And viewport size, why did this change? And then 320, okay? All right, so let's just double check all this stuff is lining up, okay? So rem units, range 40 to 48, viewport 320 to 1120, CSS method is clamp, and then options just the Safari fix, okay? So I got all of that in there. Now what you do is, this is where the calculation was created by these numbers that I added in here. So what you do is you just copy this part of the code. So what you do is you come from clamp, so in between the colon on that side and the semicolon on this side and everything in the middle. And you'll see right here, it says 4.8, so that's 48 is the maximum. And then you'll see down here is 440 as the minimum. and then all of this calculation stuff happening in between. So you just copy that, come back over to oxygen. Let's go back to our headings, our H1. So that's going to be this one right here. And we want to set this. So what you got to do is you got to take it from pixels, click on that, and then select none. This won't work any other way. You need to make sure you go and select none. And let's drop that clamp in there. So these are all H1. So let me make this be an H2, and let's make this be an H3. Okay, so now this is showing at 48 pixels. And if I was to go down to my smaller screen sizes, this here is going to be at 40. Okay, and I'll show you how that works. Let me do the line height too, 1.2. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how that works on the front end to show you that it is actually working. So here we go. So I have this Chrome extension called What the Font. And if I hover over the text, it's going to tell me what the text is. And then if I click on it, it's telling me 48 pixels, Source Sans Pro 700 font weight. Now let's shrink the screen size. Let's do this again. Hover over it, click on it, and it's telling me it's 42. And we can even go somewhere in the middle and do it again, and it's telling me 45. Okay, so it's just happening fluidly. So you're not going to get any of these breaks, anything like that. So that's it. You never have to worry about your H1 tag again. Okay, and now you do the same thing with your H2. Let's say our H2 is going to be 38 down to 30. All of this stuff stays the same. Once you hit that, once you set that up, you never have to touch that again. It's just these two fields right here. Now this calculation, grab it again. Remember, in between the colon and the semicolon. So from clamp to here, copy that, come back over to the site. Now we're going to do our H2. Again, remember to switch this to none. Highlight that, and that's done. Let's go get for our H3. Let's say that's going to be 28 and down to 24, or let's go 22. Okay, to see we get a bigger change. Okay, so we got that. Our calculation is happening here. Copy this. Bring it over here. Now we're on our H3. Again, remember none. Drop that in there, and now that happens. Now let's do our body text. And we want our body text to be 18, so 1.8, and the smallest will be 14. Click outside of this, so let this calculation happen. So now that that's done, copy this again. Bring that over. Now we're going to go to our body text. So that's here, body text. Again, font size, none. Highlight that, drop that in there, and now that's up to 18. Okay, because it was down to 10 because we set our base font at 10. So now we're back up to 18. So let's save this. Come over here and refresh this, and we'll do our test again. Okay, so what the font. So this is going to be 48. This is going to be 38, 28, and now this, 18. Let's shrink the page. 42, 32, 23, and this will be 14. It's actually 15. And the reason why it's showing 15 and not 14 is because our viewport was set to 320 pixels. The Chrome browser doing it this way, I can't shrink it below, I think it's like 400 or 420 or something like that. So if I was able to shrink this down to 320, that would be 14. Okay, so there you go. So that's that. Now let's do it for our padding top and bottom. So it's basically going to be the same thing. So we're going to come over here to sections and columns. So here's our sections and our columns. So let's say for our sections, we want it to be 100 pixels on the top, 10 times 10. And at the low end, let's go to 20 so that we can see a big change in it. It'll be really obvious the change. Okay, so let's come over here, select this, copy that, come over here. And again, we still got to switch this to none. So we can go down to none, drop that in there, come over here to none, and drop that in there. Okay, so let's hit save on that. Now, I don't really have a way of measuring from here to here, but we know it's 100 because we dropped that in there. So what I'm going to show you through the breakpoints is how this is going to get incrementally smaller as we go down in screen size. So down to 1120, down to 991. So you can, it's pretty obvious that there's much smaller space there. Down to 767, and now on the phone, that's going to be 20 pixels. Okay, so there we go. So that's that, and now you're done. You're done. You're never, as you're building your site now, every time you add a section, every time you add an H tag, every time you add a body copy, you know it's going to be set at 18 pixels or whatever number it is you choose, and you know it's going to be responsive. So you never have to come here and go, all right, I need my H tag to be this. On this, I need my H tag to be smaller here, smaller here, smaller here. So over the course of a build, that's going to save you a lot of time, and you know it's right from the beginning, so it's one less thing to think about. Okay, so now the last thing I want to show you is how to use the Oxy Ninja utility classes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build out a card real quick and show you how fast you can do that. So let's add another section below this one. So Shift S gives me my section. And in here, I'm going to put a div. So Shift D gives me my div. Now, with the core framework that comes with Oxy Ninja, let me show you the selectors. So what it does, in addition to adding these style sheets, because there's certain things that need to be done from the style sheet, but there are other things that can just be set up with the selectors that are using Oxygen. Okay, so here we got our selectors, and you see core is being installed. All of these selectors were installed by the Oxy Ninja plugin, and you'll see there's like 300 of them or something like that. And if you want to see what all of these selectors are, or all these style sheets are, on the Oxy Ninja website, they do have a cheat sheet that has every single one of their selectors put here so that you can take a look for it yourself. And they're all categorized, so you can see columns. So this will do a CSS grid, and then column sizing within that grid, row sizing, column start position, and all of these things. And again, you just stack these CSS classes to build out sections and cards really fast, really easy. And once you get familiar with this, it becomes pretty intuitive. And I'll show you once we get in there. And then you also have padding. You have padding all sides, padding left, padding right, padding top, padding bottom. Same thing with margin, and then other spacing, gaps. So these are gaps that are going to be in between the columns when you set up your grid. You have typography classes that are going to utilize the color global settings that are in there, and you can update those. So Core puts in a global color style sheet, and you can change those because it doesn't call the colors like red or blue. It's primary, it's secondary, it's alternate. So you can go in there and update those colors to match your branding. And it just, and then when Oxy Ninja gets updated, none of that stuff changes. It stays to whatever you change it to. You've got alignment classes and so on. All right, so let's get into this. Let's build this card out. All right, so what I want to do, first thing I want to do is I want to make this be 3-column grid. So what you do, but before I do that, I want to make one update to the editor here. So let's go to settings. Let's go to editor settings, and now see class suggestions limit. By default, it's 5. I'm going to bump that up to 20. Okay, and I'll show you what that does now. So if I'm here, all right, let's name this as my section. So we're going to call this my, let's do Shift N to name it real quick. And you see now this naming comes up, everything is highlighted. All I got to do is start typing. And we're going to call this card section, enter. We're done. Now this is going to be my grid wrapper. So Shift N. I'm going to call this grid 3 wrapper. Okay. So now you see just how quickly I can name things. It went from 5 steps to 2. All right. So now let's add the Oxy Ninja class for a 3-column grid. So all I got to do is start typing, and I want it to be a column. So I'm going to just start typing in column. And now I get all of these suggestions of the column classes that are already been pre-installed. So I want column 3. So I come down here. Let's see, where's column 3? Column 3. Okay. And another thing Oxy Ninja does right out of the box is it locks all of your classes, which saves you excuse me, saves you the headache of accidentally editing a class by mistake and then breaking your whole website, and then having to go through the hassle of trying to find out which classes you updated. So it locks everything. It's really a great feature. But you can unlock it, and you can come down here and you can see your columns. Okay, but let's keep that locked for now. So now I got 3 columns in here. Well, so I don't have 3 columns in here, but I set up a 3-column grid wrapper. So everything I add to it now will fall within those 3 columns. So now I want to add a div. So Shift D, I got my div. And if I was to add another div, wait, I want to add a div inside a div. What I want to do is duplicate this, and the key command for duplicate now is Command D. So it gave me 3 columns. Now, if I kept going, it's going to drop the next ones down to the next row, and so on. All right, so let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of all of these, because I'm just going to work on one, and then we're going to duplicate it. So now I got my card, and now what I want on my card is I want an icon, so that's Command I. I want a heading, so Command H. I'm sorry, Shift H. Then I want text, Shift T. Then I want a button, Shift B. All right, just like that, everything was just added in there super quick. Let's drop this down to an H3. Now, another cool class that comes with Oxy Ninja is something called owl spacing. So you see how everything in here is right on top of each other? Now I want to evenly space all of these elements inside of this card. So let's rename this, and let's just call this card. Okay, so now I know that's my card. All right, so to that class, to that div, the one that's wrapping all of my elements, I'm going to add owl spacing. So you just start typing in owl, and you'll see owl small. So let's do small. So you see how it gives me spacing in between all of these elements? It's even. And the way it's doing that is that it's adding margin to the top of every element in here that doesn't have a parent. So in other words, so this button has the parent of this text, and this text has this parent of this heading, and this heading has this parent of the icon. The icon doesn't have anything above it, so it's not going to add any padding there or margin there. So it's just below it. So if I was to take this heading and move it above the icon like that, you'll see, let it think about it for a second. Okay, now you see there's no margin above this. Now the margin is above the icon. Okay, so let's get the icon back up there. Okay, it's going to take a second to think about it. All right, and now the other thing I want to do now is, I got my icon outside of my card altogether. Let's get that back in there. Okay, so now the thing I want to do is I want to add padding to this card all the way around it. So just come on up in here, select in here, and just start typing in padding. I don't need to know the exact name of the class. I just need to start typing pad, and it's going to give me all of these suggestions. In this case, because I updated the editor, it's giving me 20 suggestions. So now I just come through here, and I want padding, let's say padding medium. And it's going to give me medium padding all the way around the whole card. Okay, so, and that's it, real quick like that. Now, if, for example, you wanted to say like these 2 elements right here, with the owl spacings, say that, you know what, you want to make this spacing different. Maybe you want them to be closer together. If you were to wrap both of these in the same div, that owl spacing would only apply to that div, and the elements inside of it would not be separated by this margin on top anymore. Okay, all right, so now another class that comes with Oxy Ninja is card. So we'll call this one card. So I'm just going to start typing in card, and we're going to do card dark. And now what that does is it adds a couple of things to this div, to this card wrapper. It rounded the corners, obviously gave me this dark background, and it dropped in a small, very, very faint drop shadow. And you'll see the colors. This is pulling the colors from here. So if I go to, if I go to global styles and we go to colors, core, so this one is called card dark. So that's pulling in this color right here, 191919. And I can change this. I can update this to anything I want. And you'll see it changes. Okay, so you can update those things. But in this case, I'm going to leave it where it was. And I'm going to show you another little quick trick here. So if you want to, so now you see all the elements inside of this are dark, but you want to make them all light, because obviously dark text inside of a dark card like this is not going to show up well. So you don't have to go in here and select the icon, select the heading, and select the text to change the color. You can just select the card, and now Oxy Ninja has a text class, and you call it text light. And if I add that to the card that has all these elements inside of it, it's going to cascade onto everything that's inside that card. So with one class, one click, I've lightened all my text in there. Now, another trick I want to show you. So let's see. And now there's some cases where you want to add custom classes to different elements, and this could be an example of one of those. So let's do it like this. Let's call this. I'm going to add a custom class to this. I'm going to call it card dash icon. Hit enter. Whoops. Hit add the class. Let's go to heading and let's do card heading. Hit enter. Text. Let's do card dash text. Enter and button. And let's go card button. Okay. Now let's do this. Let's duplicate this card a few times. Command D duplicates the whole thing. Okay. Now I want to create a little spacing in between my columns here. So I'm going to go back to the grid wrapper that's with all of these cards in it, and I'm going to add another Oxy Ninja class called stretch. See, stretch, and then I'm going to add gap. G-A-P. Gap. Let's do gap medium. What I want to do actually real quick is I'm going to take the stretch class off for a second because I want to illustrate what that does. So let's do this. Let's take this here. Let's copy this. And let's go to this one and do the same thing, but I'm going to add a little bit more to it. Okay, so you see how all of these columns now are of uneven heights? What happened here? I lost something here. Let's do Command Z. Okay, all right. That's another nice key command, Command Z. All right, so they're all uneven heights. So what I want to do now is come back up to the grid wrapper, and now I'm going to add that stretch class back in here. That stretch, now they're all the same size. Okay, now another thing that you're noticing is that all these buttons are all uneven. And to me, I think that looks terrible. What I want all of these buttons is to be lined up on the bottom here. So what we're going to do is to this one, to the card, the wrapper, the card wrapper, just select vertical. And I'm going to show you what that does. What that does is that adds display flex. And I need to do that to all of these. Let's go here and let's go here. Okay, so now that all of these card wrappers have the display flex, come down to this text right here. Make sure that we're in the CSS class because all of these text elements have that CSS class. So whatever I do here is going to affect all of these. So then you come back to layout, scroll to the bottom where it says flex grow, type in 1. All of the buttons drop down to the bottom. Now if I had, here I have 3, if I had 6, 9, 12, it's going to, all the buttons are now going to be aligned at the bottom. I just think that's a much cleaner look. It just looks so much nicer. It always bugs me whenever I see uneven buttons on a site. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. All right. So there. That's with the Oxy Ninja plugin and utility classes. And that is pretty much, I think, with these tricks that I just, not tricks, but with these techniques or this strategy that I just showed you, over the course of a build, this is definitely going to save you a lot of time. You're going to be able to build sites much faster. It means you could build more sites in less time, or just have more time to do other things, more time to work on your business, more time to focus on other aspects of your business. And that's it. So hopefully this has been very helpful for you. And thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.